90-Day Fiancé star Andre Castravette faced a breaking point. Yes, you heard that right. What happens when a man known for control loses everything he once fought to protect? Andre was confident, dominant, a husband who demanded respect, a provider who refused to show weakness. But behind the cameras, behind the confident words, he was quietly falling apart. It started with a $75,000 business loss, a setback he thought he could fix alone. Then came late nights, secret screens, and risky bets nobody knew about. Soon, shocking truths came out. Nearly $330,000 in online gambling debt, a lawsuit, an arrest, and a courtroom battle that changed his life forever. The final verdict gave him 1 year and 2 months in prison. And as he faced the consequences of his choices, his marriage could not survive. Overwhelmed by secrecy, betrayal, and financial ruin, Elizabeth made the hardest decision of her life. She walked away. Before the headlines, the court documents, and the prison sentence, there was a dream. Andre came to America with a simple belief. Hard work, strength, and determination could build a better life. He wasn't quiet, he wasn't passive. He believed in being the man who leads, decides, and provides. When he met Elizabeth, their relationship moved fast. Love came with tension, cultural clashes, power struggles, but also loyalty. On 90-Day Fiancé, viewers saw Andre as confident and controversial. Some admired his directness, others feared his temper. But one thing was clear. Andre wanted control, not chaos. Marriage brought responsibility. Fatherhood brought pressure. Reality TV fame brought expectations. Andre wanted more than fame. He wanted financial independence, stability, and respect. That's when business entered the picture. Encouraged by others and confident because of his public image, Andre invested heavily in a private venture. No cameras, no confessionals, just money moving quietly behind the scenes. Then came the loss, $75,000 gone. At first, Andre brushed it off. He told himself it was temporary, just a setback. He doubled down, believing one smart move could recover everything. But inside, something shifted. The pressure to prove himself became heavier. Pride wouldn't let him admit defeat. Elizabeth noticed. Longer nights, shorter temper, constant stress. But every question was met with the same answer. I'll handle it. What Elizabeth didn't know, what nobody knew, was that this loss was just the beginning. Because when control slips, desperation takes its place. Desperation never plays fair. The business was supposed to be Andre's turning point. After years of temporary jobs and reality TV income, he wanted something permanent, something that would prove he was more than just a loud personality on screen. He spoke about independence, about building something of his own, about being a provider who didn't need help. At first, everything looked promising. The investment seemed smart. The numbers made sense. The future looked secure. Andre poured nearly $75,000 into the venture. Savings, borrowed money, and funds quietly shifted from different places. He told Elizabeth it was under control, insisting this risk would pay off bigger than anything they had ever known. But businesses don't collapse overnight. The first signs were subtle: delayed returns, missed timelines, partners who stopped answering calls. Each small warning was dismissed as normal business issues. Panic, to Andre, meant weakness. Weeks turned into months, and then the truth hit: the money was gone. The business had failed completely. $75,000 vanished, with no safety net. Andre didn't tell Elizabeth immediately. Admitting failure felt worse than the loss itself. He buried the truth beneath confidence, convincing himself he could recover it quickly. If not through business, then through something faster. That's when desperation crept in. Late nights became routine. His phone was always in his hand, screens glowing long after Elizabeth and their child had gone to sleep. When questioned, he brushed it off as research or exploring new opportunities. But this wasn't planning, it was escape. What started as curiosity turned into habit. Habit turned into obsession. Andre was no longer trying to win back what he had lost. He was chasing the feeling of control he no longer had. Elizabeth sensed the distance. Conversations became arguments. Transparency disappeared. The man who once demanded honesty now avoided questions himself. The irony was painful. The business loss didn't just take money. It cracked Andrei's identity. The strong provider image he had built began to collapse. Instead of asking for help, he chose silence. Silence became secrecy. Secrecy became destruction. The $75,000 lost wasn't the real disaster. It was only the door. Behind it was something far darker. By the time the house fell quiet each night, Andre was wide awake. The confidence he carried in daylight disappeared after midnight. That was when the screens came on. Phone, laptop, endless scrolling that Elizabeth never saw. To the outside world, Andre was still dominant, outspoken, unbothered. Behind closed doors, the reality was very different. The losses haunted him. Every failed business decision replayed in his mind. Every criticism he had ever received felt justified. He needed a way to take control back. That's when online gambling entered the picture. At first, it seemed harmless. A few late-night bets, a small win here, a rush there. For Andre, gambling wasn't about money, it was about power. The illusion that one smart move could undo months of failure, that one lucky streak could restore his pride, status, and role as provider. He didn't tell Elizabeth. Not because he planned to lie forever, but because he believed he would stop before it mattered, before it became real, before it became dangerous. But gambling doesn't work that way. Losses stacked faster than wins. Andre chased them aggressively. Every loss triggered another bet. Every near win convinced him the next one would fix everything. The numbers on the screen grew larger. Stakes became reckless. Credit cards maxed out, accounts were opened quietly, loans taken without discussion. Each transaction pushed him deeper into a hole he refused to acknowledge. Elizabeth noticed changes she couldn't ignore. Andre was irritable, defensive, distant. Money conversations became explosive. Simple questions felt like accusations. She didn't recognize the man she had married. The confident provider had been replaced by someone she barely knew. Secretive, obsessed, and spiraling. The reality TV image was gone. Behind the scenes, the man viewers thought they knew was a man trapped by his own pride, addicted to control, and slowly destroying everything he loved. Elizabeth realized that survival meant leaving. Trust had broken. Love couldn't survive secrecy and betrayal. And so, after years of loyalty, patience, and hope, she walked away, leaving Andre to face the consequences alone. His story is not just about gambling, business failure, or reality TV fame. It is about pride, control, and the cost of denial. It is about how one man's obsession with dominance and fear of weakness led to financial ruin, legal consequences, and the end of his marriage. The dream he brought to America became a nightmare, a cautionary tale about secrecy, desperation, and the fragile illusion of control. Whenever Elizabeth pressed for answers, Andre shut down or lashed out. The house became tense. Trust slowly eroded. Then Elizabeth began to sense this wasn't just stress anymore. This was secrecy. Something was happening that Andre wasn't ready to admit. Not to her, not to himself. What Andre didn't realize was that his online activity was leaving a trail. Every bet, every loss, every transaction created a digital footprint. Evidence silently collected itself, waiting. While Andre believed everything was private, someone else was watching. Soon, the debt he thought he could control would reveal itself in numbers so large they would shock everyone. The truth didn't hit all at once. It leaked in small ways. Unexplained bank alerts, overdue notices arriving before Andre could intercept them, calls from unknown numbers that rang too often. Each time Elizabeth asked, Andre had a ready answer. Always confident, always dismissive. Business stuff, temporary problems, nothing she needed to worry about. But worry had already arrived. What Elizabeth didn't know was that the losses had grown far beyond late-night bets. Andre had crossed the line he never planned to reach. Gambling was no longer occasional, it was constant. And the numbers were no longer small. When the full picture finally emerged, it was devastating. Nearly $330,000 in debt. Loans stacked on loans, credit lines from multiple platforms, online gambling accounts bleeding money faster than Andre could track. What began as a $75,000 attempt to recover losses had turned into a financial collapse threatening everything they owned. Andre convinced himself he was still in control. He wasn't. The weight of the debt crushed him. Sleep disappeared. Paranoia replaced confidence. Every knock at the door felt like danger. Every phone call felt like exposure. He started obsessively tracking numbers, calculating impossible scenarios where a single win could erase it all. It never came. Elizabeth discovered the truth by accident, a document left open, an email notification that couldn't be undone. When she confronted him, the room went quiet. No shouting, no anger at first, just shock. Andre admitted everything. The gambling, the loans, the lies. He insisted he was trying to fix it. He swore he never meant to hurt his family. But apologies sounded hollow against numbers that large. Trust collapsed. Elizabeth realized this wasn't just financial trouble. It was a pattern of secrecy, control, and denial that had been growing for years, and now it had consumed their future. Andre didn't know yet that his creditors weren't waiting patiently. Legal notices were already being prepared. Transactions were being reviewed. Platforms he thought were anonymous weren't invisible. The debt wasn't personal anymore, it was legal. The collapse didn't arrive with sirens. It came quietly in envelopes marked urgent, in emails written in legal language Andre could no longer ignore. What he once believed was a private spiral had become something far more dangerous. The creditors had stopped waiting. Formal complaints were filed. Payment demands turned into legal notices. Gambling platforms began cooperating with financial investigators. Every late-night bet, every transaction, every loan became traceable. Andre tried to negotiate. He made calls he should have made months earlier. He promised repayments he couldn't guarantee, asked for more time he no longer had. But the debt was too large, and the pattern was too clear. The evidence showed recklessness, not misfortune. Then came the lawsuit. A civil case was filed citing failure to repay nearly $330,000. The filing detailed Andre's gambling history, dates, amounts, platforms, and losses. It painted a picture not of a failed businessman, but of a man who refused to stop. Elizabeth learned about the lawsuit not from Andre, but from a legal notice delivered to their home. That moment changed everything. Arguments that once happened behind closed doors were now public. Friends found out. Family found out. Even casual acquaintances whispered. Andre's pride shattered. He no longer controlled the story. Authorities soon stepped in. An arrest warrant was issued. Procedural, methodical, unavoidable. When Andre was taken into custody, there were no cameras, no dramatic confrontation, just silence and disbelief. The man who once demanded respect was escorted quietly. Elizabeth watched, emotionally numb. This wasn't anger anymore. It was exhaustion. The man she married had become someone she no longer recognized. Andre spent the night in custody and was released pending trial, but the damage was irreversible. His reputation was broken, his finances destroyed, his family fractured. The house of cards had fallen. Ahead wasn't redemption, it was judgment. The court was no longer asking if Andre was responsible. It was asking how much he would have to pay. The courtroom was colder than Andre expected, not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Gone were the late-night excuses, private justifications, and belief he could talk his way out. Here, only facts mattered. Andre sat quietly beside his lawyer, hands folded, jaw tight. For the first time, he wasn't in control. The prosecution presented evidence methodically. Transaction logs appeared first, hundreds of entries detailing online gambling over months. Each bet, each loss, each desperate attempt to recover money was laid out clearly. The numbers spoke louder than any argument could. Then came the loans. Multiple lenders testified remotely. They described repeated borrowing, mispayments, and broken promises. Some accounts showed Andre opening new credit lines immediately after maxing out old ones. The court confirmed the total debt, nearly $330,000. Andre's defense argued financial mismanagement caused by stress and poor judgment. They said there was no criminal intent, only desperation, a man overwhelmed by pressure, family responsibility, and pride. But intent wasn't the question. responsibility was. When Elizabeth was called to testify, the tension shifted. She didn't attack Andre. She didn't defend him. Her voice was calm, almost detached, as she described the secrecy, lies, and emotional toll of discovering the truth. She spoke about trust, about being shut out, about realizing too late that the man she loved had been living a separate life behind a screen. Andre didn't look at her. The judge asked direct questions. Did Andre understand the risk? Did he continue despite knowing the consequences? Did he attempt to hide the debt? The answers were unavoidable. Yes. 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 By the end of the hearing, the room felt heavy. There were no dramatic finales, no shouting, no tears, just the quiet realization that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was accountability. Andre felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Fear. Not anger, not defiance, fear. For the first time, he understood clearly that this wasn't about saving face. It was about consequences. The courtroom fell silent. Andre sat upright, eyes forward, rehearsing every possible outcome in his head. Fines, probation, anything that might let him leave the same way he came. But courts don't run on hope. They run on evidence. The judge entered without ceremony, placed files on the bench, paused long enough for Andre to know what was coming. The judge spoke slowly, clearly, without emotion. Andre's background, family responsibilities, and lack of prior criminal history were noted, but they didn't outweigh the severity of his actions. The judge referenced the timeline, repeated decisions, continued gambling despite mounting losses, deliberate concealment of debt, and financial harm not only to lenders, but to his household. The ruling was final. Based on the evidence and testimonies, the court found Andre Castravette guilty of financial misconduct related to unrepaid debt and fraudulent behavior linked to online gambling. The sentence was firm and steady. 1 year and 2 months of imprisonment. No dramatic gasps, no outbursts, just the sound of reality settling into place. After the sentence was handed down, Andre faced a new reality. The world he had built on confidence and control no longer existed. Prison was not just a physical space, it was a mirror. Every decision he had tried to hide, every risk he thought he could manage, now confronted him. Behind the walls, there was no performance, no fans, no reality TV edits. Just consequences. Elizabeth, meanwhile, tried to navigate a life fractured by secrecy and betrayal. She had stayed silent for months, hoping Andre would come clean, hoping the truth could be managed. But when it couldn't, she realized she had to reclaim control over her own life. Simple routines became her anchor. Packing lunches for their child, scheduling school drop-offs, and keeping the house running were acts of survival. Each day reminded her that stability had to be rebuilt from scratch. Financially, the family was in crisis. The debt didn't vanish with the court ruling. Creditor calls continued, legal fees piled up, and bankruptcy loomed as a possible solution. Elizabeth had to learn things she never expected: tax law, debt negotiations, and legal filings, just to prevent complete collapse. She often stayed up late, studying documents while Andre was in custody, trying to prevent one mistake that could undo everything. Andre, in prison, faced another reality: isolation. He had been used to commanding attention, asserting dominance, and being listened to. Now, his voice carried no weight. Other inmates didn't care about TV fame or bravado. Every day was a reminder that choices have consequences, and that pretending control is real does not protect you from the truth. Letters were his only connection to the outside world, and even then, communication was slow. When Elizabeth received them, she read carefully, aware that he was still trying to frame his story, still trying to manage perception. But she had changed. Her trust had been broken. She responded cautiously, keeping boundaries that Andre could no longer cross. She was no longer the woman waiting for his explanation. She was a parent and a protector of her own life, and that of their child. Friends and family were divided. Some sympathized with Andre's situation, saying he had been under immense pressure and made mistakes anyone could make. Others were angered, feeling that secrecy and gambling on such a scale was unforgivable. Elizabeth learned quickly who she could rely on and who could not be trusted with the truth. Every social interaction became a careful calculation, a way to protect her child from gossip and judgment while managing practical support. Even after his release, Andrei's life did not return to normal. Public perception had shifted. Social media, once a place of admiration and attention, now carried criticism and judgment. Every post, every interaction reminded him of the choices that led here. Sponsorships vanished. Business opportunities disappeared. Even casual acquaintances viewed him with suspicion. He realized that reputation, once lost, cannot simply be repaired with words. It must be rebuilt, slowly, deliberately, and often with sacrifice. Elizabeth, on the other hand, discovered resilience she didn't know she had. Financial independence became her mission. She restructured bills, sold assets, and started small ventures to create a steady